Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we gotta talk about the return, but not really, of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris decided that she was going to release a 10-minute or so speech to her supporters. Possibly this is because the campaign is in extraordinary debt because it was run so horribly, and I find this to be unbelievably amusing for a number of reasons. And first and foremost, among those reasons, is that this is the face of defeat, of humiliation, of absolute destruction, and other than Hillary Clinton being found wandering in the woods a couple of weeks after losing to the evil orange man, this is one of the most funniest things that I've seen in American politics as it relates to the evil orange man, Donald J. Trump. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Back at you, brother. You are such an extraordinary leader, and we have become lifelong friends. I just, in front of everyone, I want to thank you, Tim. You lead with courage. You lead with heart. You see the people. You care about the people.
So if you guys are not aware, the full-length version of this video is actually around 13 minutes long. The first 4 to 5 minutes or so is Tim Walz, another loser, speaking on behalf of this amazing campaign that, according to Joy Reid, was run absolutely flawlessly because they got Queen Latifah to endorse Kamala Harris, and she never endorses anyone.
And I think it's important to say that, you know, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. You know, I mean, she had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swiftie to the Swifties. She had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
And you could tell right off the bat that Kamala Harris's inauthenticity, her word salads, her absolute failure as a human being, as a politician, as a speaker, are on full display with this empty nonsense about how she's a lifelong friend with Tim Walz and she cares about him ever so dearly.
You believe in uplifting the dignity to which all people are entitled, and you do it and you have a sense of fun when you're doing it. But you are an extraordinary leader, and obviously the people of Minnesota are very, very lucky to have you there. But you are a national leader and a dear friend, and thank you.
Even though we all know that Tim Walz will go the way of Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton's running mate, that is such a joke and forgettable that they actually did an SNL thing on how forgettable he actually was. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this nonsense. It's just cringe, honestly. There's no real analysis here, but we're gonna have some fun because the Kamala Harris campaign needs money. Her employees are talking about how they're going hungry, so Kamala Harris couldn't even deal with the problems that her own staffers ended up facing.
Noel, thank you for your work in Pennsylvania and all that you did for our campaign. And let me just say to everyone on this call, I am so grateful for you. And I'm so thankful to you.
So one of the other things that I find hilarious about this is the body language indicators that I'm picking up off of this. Now, a lot of people have taken note of the fact that Kamala Harris looks drunk. She's kind of slurring her words. If you slow this video down a little bit, she seems even more drunk.
And let me just say to everyone on this call, I am so grateful for you. And I'm so thankful to you.
But for me, all of that is not really what's important. For me, the nonverbal indicators while she's speaking are far more entertaining because she's talking about how grateful she is to this person or that person. Oh my God, the person running my Pennsylvania operation. I am so grateful to you. But in reality, her body language tells us otherwise because while she's saying she's grateful, she's nodding her head no. She's like, I am so grateful for this run that happened. happened, this run that ended my political career, this run that was a humiliating loss for me, and especially to the people who lost me the swing states. Thank you so much, as I nod my head no repeatedly. Again, once you pick up on these kind of subtle indicators, you can't unsee them, and I would love for the behavioral panel to analyze this, to break this down, because Kamala Harris is often described as a bitter, nasty person behind the scenes. Again, we had somebody who said that their child ended up working for her when she was the Attorney General of California. He said that he was going to vote for Kamala Harris regardless because he's a lifelong Democrat, but they actually said that their child had to stand up and address her without looking her in the eyes as General Kamala Harris. This is the level of worship and ego that she demands from everyone that's around her behind the scenes when the cameras aren't there. And yes, I am still waiting for those campaign books to come out, because as the campaign staffers come forward, what we hear about is dysfunction and all kinds of crazy nonsense. And by the way, one of the other things that is confirmed is that their internal polling never really showed her being ahead, which is something that I talked about often on this show because we had a lot of leaks from the internals, but people called me crazy. People said I was denying the polls, even though in the public polls, she was still polling worse than both Biden and Hillary Clinton at that point in time the previous year. So what was actually happening was I was living in reality. These people were living in unreality. And guess what? Reality beats unreality each and every time. And it beat the crap out of the Harris campaign.
I'm thankful for your love of our country and your willingness to put the work into it. I'm thankful for the faith that you put in me and Governor Walz and our team. And I am thankful because I know your character is such that you're not going to get knocked down. And you're in this fight. And you're in it for all the right reasons. And I know that about you. It's why you're part of this call right now and all the work that you did over those 107 days and even before. That's your nature. And the outcome of this election obviously is not what we wanted. It is not what we worked so hard for.
Again, take note of the fact that she is nodding her head no throughout her saying all these different things. And this is because obviously she's just trying to put up a brave face. There are rumors that she might run for governor of California, that maybe she would run for president again, try to get the nomination. Although I will already point out, for somebody who has the name recognition of being the candidate the last go around, she's still polling under 50%, and we're 4 years out from that primary process, like 3.5 from the primary, but 4 years out from even talking about 2028 in any kind of serious way. And Kamala Harris is already on the cusp of being caught, according to that polling, by Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, who, despite the fact that you guys might be aware of him because you're tuning into politics, despite the fact that he's a popular governor in the state of Pennsylvania, doesn't have or shouldn't have the national recognition on par with the vice president of the United States of America. But that is how horrible she is. Can you imagine if this woman runs for the nomination in 2028 and doesn't make it to Iowa again? She goes her whole life never winning a Democratic primary state. That would be unbelievably hilarious. But then again, it's not surprising because Kamala Harris is so bad of a candidate, unlike Hillary Clinton, who is also a terrible candidate, she couldn't even make it to day one of the Democratic primary.
But I am proud of the race we ran. And your role in this was critical. What we did in 107 days was unprecedented. Think about the coalition that we built, and we were so intentional about that. You would hear me talk about it all the time. Being a daughter of parents who are active in the civil rights movement, I know and believe that the best movements that are about progress in our country mean that it's leaders that we are dedicated to the coalition, to bringing people together that seemingly have nothing in common.
I mean, again, the fact that anyone was surprised that this woman lost the presidential race against Donald Trump is astounding. She's like, think about the coalition that we built. And it was so impressive, and we emphasized the coalition during the course of our campaign because we knew it was all about the coalition. Again, Kamala Harris, you say so many words without communicating anything. It's actually quite impressive. And what's amazing about this is that, yes, yes, Trump rambles. He may call it weaving in and out of specific topics. You can buy into that if you want, but the dude will go off on random tangents. But he is still more solid in delivering points than Kamala Harris, who is, almost 20 years younger than him, a vice president, a former prosecutor, somebody who allegedly should be able to speak at least reasonably decently, and this is the best that she could do. The coalition, and now people have talked about in terms of income levels and in terms of some demographic levels, obviously with notable exceptions like black people not being in Trump's coalition, that Trump's coalition actually looks more similar to Obama's from 2008 than Kamala Harris's coalition does. Again, Trump won voters who make under $50,000. Kamala Harris won voters that make over $100,000. If you want to know why the media missed this election result, if you want to know why they were so surprised by Kamala Harris losing the election, it's because everybody they knew in their wealthy circles ended up backing this person, and all the people that they didn't know, the everyday people that voted for the evil orange man, were against her. This is obvious, this is clear, and I also want to point out that she did nothing impressive in the 107 days that she was a candidate. That is a convenient excuse for her.
But I am proud of the race we ran. And your role in this was critical. What we did in 107 days was unprecedented.
But the fact of the matter is, Kamala Harris would have never won the Democratic nomination straight up, so the idea that she was hamstrung by the shortened campaign, when in reality she wouldn't have been able to win but for this shortened campaign, I find to be an asinine proposal. In addition to that, they blew not just $1 billion as previously reported, they blew $1.5 billion, which is one of the reasons why it's so funny to hear her talk about the money that she raised during the election and how it was record-breaking amounts of money when she incinerated that money.
And our understanding that the strength of our country will be a function of our willingness to put in the work, and that we will do that work with a sense of joy, yes, with a sense of work ethic and understanding it's going to be hard, but it's good work. It's good work. To be engaged in a collective fight for America's future. And it means so much to me and to Governor Walz that you knocked on doors, you called friends, you called in favors. You said, hey, I showed up at your softball game, now I need you to show up at the campaign office. You put in the time, it was personal for you. And you gave all that you could to support our campaign. Because of your efforts, get this, we raised an historic $1.4 billion, almost $1.5 billion from grassroots supporters alone, the most in presidential campaign history. Nearly 8 million donors contributed an average donation of about $56 to fuel our people-powered campaign.
So first of all, we get the awkward Kamala Harris laugh, and then we get the numbers of all the individual donors who donated, on average, $56 to her campaign, to which she took that money and put it in an incinerator. Again, let's run through just the highlights. It was previously reported that Oprah Winfrey's production company received $1 million for that stupid-ass celebrity-filled Oprah Winfrey town hall. Turns out it was $2.5 million. She did an appearance on the Call Her Daddy podcast, and instead of going out to the studio and taking advantage of the free media that you get as a presidential candidate, because she wanted them to edit the interview in her favor and she wanted more control, she actually paid $100,000 to reconstruct a single-use set so she could do an interview and appear to be authentic with the second largest podcast in the world. She also refused to go on Joe Rogan's podcast because he wouldn't bend the knee and go with her whims and do the whole fake, not really your show kind of show interview with her, and that ended up costing her a ton in free media, especially considering the fact that on election day, I believe the Trump-Rogan interview, and it has more now, had about 50 million views just on YouTube. She didn't go on any other notable podcasts. They were actually making the case that Charlemagne the God's podcast was bigger than Joe Rogan. Fact check, completely false and embarrassing. And in addition to that, she was bribing all different kinds kinds of media figures with these donations to their organizations. And a perfect example of that is the fact that she gave $500,000, $500,000 from those small donors, giving $56 apiece to Al Sharpton's National Action Network. She took your money and gave it to people who already support the Democrats in the form of bribes to their nonprofits so they would back her. She did the same thing for Roland Martin. She paid his company for supposedly a media buy, which is not listed on the campaign as an advertising buy. And despite what Roland Martin says, the fact is he pocketed that money and then gave her an interview and didn't disclose that his company, that he is the majority owner of, received that money, and that is obviously ridiculously biased. Again, it is nowhere near the same thing as if you were going to advertise on Fox News and then be interviewed by a Fox News host or MSNBC or something similar, because that money doesn't change the payments, doesn't change the contract, and most contributors on Fox and MSNBC don't have an ownership stake in the company. But she's going to throw it in your face that she raised almost $1.5 billion off of you guys and then ended up $20 million in debt. And by the way, lost the election. Remember, the point of a campaign, the point of raising all this money is to win. She lost every single swing state. She spent $450,000 a day to advertise on the Sphere in Las Vegas, and she lost Nevada.
And understand that the work that we did included the work that so many of you here did, which is to talk to first-time voters. Many of you are first-time voters. And to talk about how being involved can make a difference. And that remains true. And that's one of the pieces that I just want us to please take away, that our fight for freedom and for opportunity and for the promise of America, it included, for example, nearly almost 4 million first-time contributors to our campaign, because of the work you did of helping people know that they can be engaged and that they're not outside, that they're inside, that we're all in this together. And that work continues. The work must continue of reminding ourselves that we have an ability to stay engaged in a way that will make a difference. The work that you all did, it's going to have lasting effect. Again, I'll say, the election didn't turn out like we wanted it to. Certainly not as we planned for it to. But understand that the work we put into it was about empowering people. That's the spirit with the work we did. Our spirit and our work was about saying that it is a strength that we each have to lift people up, as opposed to beating people down. It is a strength we have that has lasting effect.
So there's only a few things that are historic about Kamala Harris's campaign, but I've narrowed them down to 3, even though she keeps mentioning the historic nature of this campaign. First and foremost, obviously, it's one of the first campaigns to be launched after a coup against the sitting president, in which she participated in. So obviously, that is one thing. Secondly, it is historic for how badly it was run. Again, $1.5 billion started out with in just over 3 months, they ended up $20 million in debt. How could you possibly do that? Well, Kamala Harris's campaign team seemed like experts in that particular process. But the third reason why it's historic is because Donald Trump is now the second president ever to win non-consecutive terms. So it has nothing to do with anything positive for the Harris campaign. In fact, quite the opposite. They did nothing right.
And I know this is an uncertain time. I'm clear-eyed about that. I know you're clear-eyed about it. And it feels heavy. And I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you. Look, this mission that we have, it takes hard work. But as you've heard me say many times, we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work can be joyful work. And in doing our work, we will remain committed and intentional about building community building coalitions, reminding people that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. We will be armed with the faith and the fuel that tells us what is possible and then drives us to achieve it.
So Kamala Harris, close to the end of this, goes on this rant about not letting them take your power from you. Don't lose your power. But the thing is, you lost the election. The Democrats are out of power. They did take your power. The voters took your power because you were clearly and obviously misusing it. And she also adds in how much they love hard work and they care about hard work. And I just would want to point out that one of the reasons why Kamala Harris didn't have policies for over 6 weeks after she stole the nomination from Joseph R. Biden is because as vice president, apparently her and her advisors, despite Joe Biden's age, never once considered what their agenda would be if Joe Biden were to die or leave office due to something. They never thought about what they were in favor of. They never put in the work as the vice president. And one of the funniest things about this is that every single time they choose a vice president, the presidential candidate goes on stage and says, well, the reason why I chose this person is because I know that they would be ready at a moment's notice to assume the office of the presidency. Kamala Harris completely disproved that notion. She was not ready, not prepared, had no vision, no agenda, and they essentially put out a bunch of focus-tested policies, tried to eradicate her past history because it was so unpopular, because she was an empty vessel, a nothing candidate, didn't put in any hard work at all whatsoever. So yeah, this speech is embarrassing. This is like, hey, we're still gonna make it to the other side of the Atlantic as the Titanic is sinking, after it's already sunk. It's humiliating, it's ridiculous, she looks drunk. This is the Trump effect, and I think we all needed this laugh before Kamala Harris gets relegated to the garbage can of history, and that garbage gets taken out to the dump of history. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Kamala Harris's epic failure. Till next time.